My FPL Game Week 4 team selection, the international break is finally over. It feels like it's been a fair amount of time since we've had any Premier League football and FPL to watch. In today's video, we're going to take you through an update of what I'm thinking with my team. I've had a couple of weeks to think about it, do some future planning, think about chip strategy, think about when I'm going to play my free hit and my wild card, who the best replacements are for someone like Ismail Sarr, who I do have in my team and is currently yellow flagged, and some potential transfers to use in my defense. I might even consider taking a -4 depending on some of that injury news. So let's dive in and have a look at my team for game week 4 and what I'm planning on doing this week. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is always the aim. Thank you for the support and subscribe if you are new to the channel. We are going to review Game Week 3 very quickly, although we've already done this. If you've switched off for the international break and are just checking in now, I did get enough to get a small green arrow, went from 3.8 million up to 3.2 million. Like, it's okay. It's definitely not the best start to the season, but I understand there are probably people with a lower rank than me, so I can't complain completely. The Bruno Fernandes late penalty was a saving grace for me this week. 20 points from him versus maybe what would have been 4 points if he hadn't have got that penalty massively changed the way that my game week looked. So I got 52 points. That was 3 above my safety score. Again, those asking, my safety score is the amount of points that I need in order to not change rank. It's taken from live FPL. And yeah, so just above it, enough to get me a small green arrow. Not really anything to write home about. That apart from João Pedro and apart from Bruno Fernandes, there wasn't much. I did, of course, make 2 transfers. I bought Chris Wood in for Mark Guiu and I brought in Ismail Sarr for Cole Palmer. I ended up benching Sarr, which was fine until about the last 5 minutes of that game where he went and scored and then looks like he's pulled his hamstring. At time of recording, we don't have a full injury update. We are waiting for the press conference from Palace on Friday, but it doesn't look great and it does not look like a good use of 2 transfers in hindsight. I don't mind them. Like, I still think Chris Wood was an okay buy with the fixtures they had, but now under Ange Postecoglou, I don't know how much I trust him. And then, of course, we've got Sarr. It doesn't look good in hindsight now that he's pulled his hamstring, but it doesn't look, it looks worse on paper than it should have done, right? Sarr scored and now he's got a nice run of fixtures. So if he didn't get injured, it would be a good transfer. So I've decided as the international break went on, I was really annoyed with it at the start, but it isn't the worst couple of transfers. They've just turned out quite bad in the outcome, but the input still was a pretty good decision, so I don't mind it too much. Let me know how you got on. How have you found the first 3 weeks? What is your overall points? Drop it all in the comments, and now let's look at some potential transfers. So having a look at some potential transfer options for me, and we've got 4 options up here. 3 of them involve a hit and 1 which is just using my 1 transfer. I'm almost certain I won't roll my transfer this week. I will be making a transfer going into the deadline unless something crazy happens, but I can't see a world where I don't at least decide to upgrade my defense. Now, I'm actually re-recording the second half of my video from basically here until the end, because we got a bit of an update on Ismail Sarr since I recorded earlier on in the afternoon. It is from James, who works at Sky Sports News. He sounds like he's got a bit of a tie to Crystal Palace, as he says he will be in the Glasner press conference on Friday. He says there is a double injury boost to Crystal Palace. Adam Wharton is not expected to probably feature against Sunderland, but should be back for West Ham. But Ismail Sarr will miss the Sunderland match, but his hamstring injury is not deemed too severe. I then, in the replies, asked him how long he's expected to be out for. He doesn't know the answer to that and will ask in the Crystal Palace press conference tomorrow. So we should get a really good update on Friday of how long Sarr is going to be out for. But he does say it's likely to be less than the original 8-week window, which has been mentioned. So my thought process on Ismail Sarr is if he's going to be out for and return in either game week 4, 5, 6, or 7, which is this side of the international break, I will probably end up keeping him and just having him on the bench. However, if he's going to be out until game week 8 or onwards, the most likely scenario is I will take a hit in order to sell him. So if we get more news on Thursday evening, or if you see it in the press conference on Friday, that will probably indicate whether I'm likely to sell him or not. I will discuss it more in the complete guide video on Friday afternoon, which I will record after the Crystal Palace press conference takes place on Friday, so I can give you a much better indication of which of these 4 is most likely to happen. But if it gets that Sarr is likely to be out for a shorter period of time and back by game week 7, I'll likely keep him. But if he's going to be out for longer than that, I'll probably go for options 2, 3, or 4, which involves selling him as part of a -4. Going into those options, so the first one is to upgrade my defense. to give myself a little bit of better squad depth, which is the Estev to Senesi transfer. I will then, of course, play Sarr if he's available, or I will have Chris Wood of Nottingham Forest, now under Ange Postecoglou, sub in off my bench away at Arsenal. It's not the best sub, but Chris Wood is a striker. Forest create chances for him. I do think he'll start over international duty, and he is on penalties. It's not the worst case scenario, and I would rather do that and keep Sarr, who I still really like, rather than taking a hit to replace him with a player who I'm not even fully certain that I love any of them enough. So again, if Sarr is likely to be back sooner rather than later, I will probably just do one transfer, avoid the hit, which is my nice boring play style. I've seen you've played, you've been posting it in the comments. That is the most likely scenario. But if Sarr is out for longer, there are a couple of options. First one is doing that transfer and then also taking a -4 to sell Sarr. I spoke about lots of potential replacements in my transfer plans and transfer targets videos earlier on in the week. Ilman and Dye and Lucas Paqueta are probably the most reliable and most likely replacements for me, given I can't afford Semenyo if I do the Estev to Senesi move. There is a way that I can get up to Semenyo, and that is option number 3. If I do Williams down to Senesi instead of doing Estev up to Senesi, that 0.4 that I free up will be enough to upgrade Ismail Sarr all the way to Semenyo. So if I decide that I've had enough of the Forest defence, known clean sheets in the first 3, don't think they'll perform well under Ange Postecoglou, I can get to Semenyo by doing this -4. Or I can do something a little bit different. If I want to still sell Williams, I could go to Daniel Munoz. And if I don't want Semenyo, I could then go down to Ilman and Dye or Lucas Paqueta. So if I'm selling Williams, I've got a couple of options. What's more important to me, going to Munoz this week with the Palace fixtures, or do I want Semenyo, which is a slightly bigger priority for my team? They are ranked in most likely. The using of one transfer is the most likely. Option 2, where I just do the same transfer but also sell Sarr to Ilman and Dye or Lucas Paqueta, is also more likely than the other 2 hits in option 3 and option 4. Now, between Ilman and Dye and Paqueta, I do prefer Ndai to Paqueta of West Ham, but the money difference allows me to do something further down the line, because if I go for Paqueta, that will leave me money to do the Williams to Munoz move either in game week 5 or further down the line. Whereas if I do Sarr to Ilman and Dye, I don't have any money in the bank for any future potential transfers. So I would say there's not much between it, because I do think Ilman and Dye and Everton look a much better attack rather than West Ham, because if West Ham hadn't have scored 3 late goals in the final 10 minutes against Forest, we wouldn't be considering buying these players, whereas Everton have looked really good attacking-wise in all of their fixtures so far. So I think Ndai is probably more favoured over Paqueta, but I am hoping Sarr is back sooner rather than later based on the update we got today, so hopefully I can just go with option 1. Now, just before we look at my team selection for game week 4, let's look at my club team selection for this week. Club, if you haven't played it yet, is a football manager game where you get to open a pack every few hours. It basically combines Ultimate Team, FIFA with FPL, and that is why I love it. Let's see who I get, and then the player you get, you can add to your lineup if you like them. So let's have a look. Core, let's see, we're going to get rare. So it is someone who could definitely get in. A defender. Who's it going to be? Fulham. Oh, Leeds at home this week. It is going to be a player who's in my FPL team for this week, in Joachim Andersen of Fulham. I'm going to sign him. I don't know if he definitely goes in, because I do have a very good defence with double Crystal Palace in there. We've got Vert. I could play him over Stack and play a 4-3-3 this week. I'm actually benching João Pedro because I want to get some of the budget of Semenyo and Mateta out of my team. If you do want to sign up and get playing, you can, of course, use the link in the description. Make sure you join my league code once you have done so. There are over 1,500 of you in my league, so make sure you go and join that. The code is up there. The code is up on the other side. I absolutely love it. I've been checking it every few hours over the international break, building up my squad. You can see what my team looks like for this week. Let me know what you thought. I have signed Mo Salah on loan for just 1 week, so I couldn't afford him in my budget, but I saw him on loan, so I took him for 1 week. Let me know, get in the game, get in my league, and let's look at game week 4. So having a look at how my team is lining up for game week 4, Sanchez is in goal over Dubravka, then into defense. The planned transfer, as I said, the most likely scenario, haven't confirmed the transfer yet, will be upgrading Estev to Senesi with my 1 free transfer and 0.7 million I currently have in the bank. That will give me a 5 defender of Porro, Anderson, Senesi, with Agbadu and Williams on the bench. It gives me much better squad depth for the future weeks in case I get another injury in case a player drops out of form, that I can easily play a back four, which actually might be the plan going into game week 5 if Sarr is not available and Reinders also have Arsenal away that week, whereas all 5 of my defenders actually have quite good fixtures. I might be forced, or I might choose to play a back four in game week 5 if Sarr is not going to be available. But this week, I like Senesi Brighton at home. He's had really good DEFCON numbers. He's hit 14, 14, and 15 DEFCON so far. He is joint highest for the most DEFCON in terms of underlying metrics, and he is one of a few players to hit it in all 3 matches so far this season. He looks really reliable for it. Into midfield, that does mean the plan at the moment is not to sell Ismaila Sarr. Again, the update we got sounds like he's more likely to be back sooner rather than later. It still could be that it's not as bad as first feared, but he could be out until game week 8, in which case I would look to sell him to probably Iliman and Die, maybe Lucas Paqueta as part of a -4. But the plan would be to either start him, or I would just have Chris Wood come in off the bench away at Arsenal. Again, he's on penalties. It's not a great fixture, but I'm not sure it's worth selling Sarr for a hit if he's going to be back in the near future. Salah is in, and then we've got Bruno and Reinders going up against each other. If I'm using my transfer in defense, I'm not going to use it on any of these. And I actually think the injury to Marmoush at Manchester City does boost Reinders. Reinders was great in game week 1 when Marmoush didn't start. In game week 2 and 3, Marmoush, although he did start out wide, drifts very central and got into a lot of the positions that Reinders was occupying in game week 1 in that number 10 position. With Marmoush likely being out, I think Doku will start, and he is much better at keeping that width on the left-hand side, meaning Reinders will have that number 10 space available for him again over the next few games. So suddenly I think he looks like a better pick than maybe he did at the beginning of the international break before Marmoush picked up this injury. Then it is Morgan Rogers alongside Ollie Watkins in my forward line. They do have Everton away, Burnley, Fulham, Sunderland in all of their next 4 games. I'm not going to hold them for all of the 4, even if they keep blanking, but they are going to get Everton, and they're most likely going to get game week 5 for me. And then in game week 6, if they're not performing, the likes of Haaland could come in for Watkins. I could look at a Arsenal midfielder in the place of Morgan Rogers. I could go for someone like a Paqueta. I could go for Iliman and Die in game week 6, who's got West Ham at home after he plays Liverpool in game week 5. So there are lots of options, but I think I'll give the Aston Villa duo another week. Let's see how the likes of Jadon Sancho, let's see how the likes of Harvey Elliott embed in and maybe change the attack, because surely they can't continue to be as bad as they've been over the first 3 game weeks. And then, of course, it is João Pedro. He did play some minutes in Brazil over the international break, but I do expect him to come back, especially with Liam Delap not being available. He should be starting the majority, if not all, of the upcoming Premier League games. In terms of captaincy, it's really obvious for me. As much as Mo Salah is disappointed in terms of actual output, he has definitely got the captaincy armband. João Pedro has got the vice captaincy. Don't really see anyone else in my team that I would even consider. So that's about it. I will be waiting until the Crystal Palace press conference on Friday before we get an update officially on what's going to happen with Ismaila Sarr. The early reports are it's not as bad as first feared. So Senesi in is my planned 1 transfer. If the Sarr news is still bad, then I'll probably take a hit to sell him, and Mo Salah with the captaincy armband. Thank you all for watching. Let's see what happens in the press conferences on Friday. I will update it all in the complete guide video on Friday afternoon. FPL is back after a long international break. I appreciate the support. I appreciate you watching all of those videos over the break, but we are back to go with game week 4. Thank you all for watching. 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.